You're listening to Overdoing It, the Rhode Island Library Podcast. Hi, this is Dave Bartos from Cranston Public Library and the Overdoing It team. We're on break for August and taking this opportunity to share some encore episodes with you. Today we are revisiting episode 15 from the 17th of December, 2024. In it, host Cheryl, Library Director at the Community Libraries of Providence, talks with her colleagues Dhana, Michelle, Lee, and Khamry about the variety of ways CLPVD is building library services that respond to the unique communities they each serve. Along the way, they get into relearning how to read for pleasure after school, book club titles, and Hot Frosty. If you work at a library in Rhode Island and want to give podcasting a try, Overdoing It is here for you. Our show is designed to serve as a venue for you to introduce our listeners to your library and community. Reach out to the team at overdoingitpod@gmail.com and pitch your episode idea. I hope you enjoy this encore presentation. Overdoing It will be back with new episodes on September 9th.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Overdoing It, where our team of library workers dish about their latest reads, views, and passions, alongside fascinating conversations with local luminaries. I'm your host, Cheryl, Library Director at the Community Libraries of Providence, and my pronouns are she and hers. Let's dive in and discover who our guests are today.
My name is Dhana. My pronouns are she, her, and I love photography. I'm using a lot of cell phones right now instead of, my DSLR camera, but I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Well, my name is Michelle. I am supervisor here at Knight Memorial Library. One of the great things that I like that only my family and close friends know is that I can binge on K-drama forever and ever and ever. It just takes me to my happy place.
I'm Lee. I'm the Adult Services Librarian at Mount Pleasant Library. My pronouns are he, him.
My name is Khamry, she, her pronouns. I am the entrepreneur specialist here at the Community Libraries of Providence. I hold a master's degree in business administration, and I'm also a small business owner myself. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you all. A little bit later in the show, we'll talk to Dhana, Michelle, Lee, and Khamry about how the Community Libraries of Providence are creating community-centered library programs. But before we get to that, let's start out as we always do with, what have you been reading? Who'd like to jump in first?
I can go. I've read a book with my book club, Conversations, and it's called Race and Insanity in a Jim Crow Asylum by Antonia Hilton. It was a very tough read, but necessary. And it had to do with an asylum that was in Maryland, 93 years old, and what took place. It was segregated, mainly African Americans. And it was tough, what happened behind the walls. Sometimes it could be a bit gruesome. So that was really tough for me. The author wrote the book partially is because she wanted to learn about her own family's experience with mental illness. So that was something inspirational for her.
Awesome, thank you.
On a lighter note, though, I started to read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, the Japanese Art of Decluttering. It's a 2014 by Maria Kondo. The reason that I picked this book up is because I have recently moved and I really want to live a less cluttered life. So I'm hoping it looks from what I've been reading, it's great. It looks like it'll be very helpful to me and hopefully spread over into the workplace.
All right, Dhana, let me know because I have several closets that need some help. So if that's a helpful resource, I'd be happy to hear about it.
Okay, all right.
Awesome.
I'll jump in. It's Michelle, and I haven't been reading much for pleasure in a while, but I do read. And right now, I'm reading a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm just getting into it, and I'm actually quite fascinated by what he's trying to put across to us, which is that, we're responsible for the change that we want to make. We're actually responsible for all the changes that happen to us in our life just by thinking our thoughts, feeling our emotions, and then kind of putting that kind of frequency and vibration out into the world. And to put it in my own words, is that those thoughts and those emotions that you put out there by frequency and vibration turn around. Well, they're accepted by your universe and they kind of like are boomeranged back at you. And so it doesn't really show itself the way you want to. It's not exact, but you'll know that a change has happened when it does. That's good or bad. And so I am actually loving the book. It also talks about how at the beginning, the mind leads you and the body follows, but over the years, the body becomes the leader and the mind follows. And so it's not so easy to change your habits when you figure there's a habit that you want to change, or when you figure that you want to live your life in a different way. You really do have to work at it, because those thoughts that have been ingrained, you got to kind of like acknowledge them, see them, and then work consistently to change them. So the book is awesome. He's an awesome writer, and that's what I'm reading right now.
It's funny that you mentioned, Michelle, that you haven't read for pleasure in a while, because I completely relate to that. For most of my life, I've been in school, so I've been reading for school. So it's the first fall in years that I can actually not be a student and actually read for myself. I actually just purchased a book, which is, I should probably break that habit because I work at a library.
Yeah.
But I just purchased a book. It's called Dominicana. It's by Angie Cruz, and it's about this young woman from the Dominican Republic and her journey to Washington Heights in New York in the 60s. I'm halfway through, so far so good. But it is nice to finally read for myself and not to read for research or to write papers. So it's nice.
That's awesome, Khamry. I remember when I got to college, the first thing I did was get a local library card, and I checked out like a stack of books, and then they sat there for the entire semester, and I didn't read any of them. And I cannot go back into Ann Arbor, because I think the local library would probably be like, you owe us $700 in overdue books. So I completely sympathize with that. Best of intentions, but it's hard.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's funny. Lee here. The book that I guess has stuck with me, that I would recommend is a book that I read with my book club, afternoon book club. It's Stephen King's You Like It Darker. It's actually one story in particular that I really liked, that I thought was like phenomenal, and that was called Rattlesnakes, which was actually supposedly a sequel to Cujo. I've never read Cujo, but it's funny because it has nothing to do with, there aren't any dogs. The premise is that apparently the main character is recuperating. A friend said, come down to Florida and you can recuperate from your horrible experience in Cujo, apparently. And so it's his time in Florida. And so that's the main premise. And he happens to be this lady there, and his friend's like, oh, don't mind her. She's a harmless eccentric. She pretends she has these two children in this stroller, but don't mind her. She's fine. And that's what everyone says. But, that's the premise. And it gets creepier and scarier, as you keep going. But anyway, it was phenomenal because it was just every step of the way. It was just such a great story. It built up to a really great, ending. And I also liked how the author Stephen King had used Florida as the setting, because I'm pretty sure he lives in Florida now, at least part of the year. So, a lot of his books are set in Maine because that's his experience, right? And I like how he's bringing in his experiences living in Florida. And I feel like Florida makes a really great setting for a horror story. So I highly recommend that short story in particular. That one, like I said, that one is called Rattlesnakes, and it's in a larger short story collection, which is pretty good. It's a mixed bag, which is called You Like It Darker.
So, Lee, I have a question. Are you able to read these late at night and then go immediately to bed?
No. I actually listen to them. I'm usually listening to them on my way to or from work, actually.
I wanted to say, if we like short, spooky stories, The Mist by Stephen King is another really, really great one. That's it's spooky.
Yeah.
You think twice about supermarkets.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually another thing. I'm glad you mentioned that about supermarkets, because I mentioned how there's the premise. I mentioned like the stroller and the children, the imaginary twins in the stroller. I won't give away any spoilers, but there's like squeaky wheel. The stroller squeaks. And there was a story time happening in the library. I was just at my desk or whatever, and I think folks were either entering or exiting from the story time, and I heard a squeaky wheel of the scroll. And man, it really creeped me out for a second, because that's what I'm getting at. This short story was so good that all of a sudden it brought me back to the story, But,
That's funny.
Yeah. When I read The Silence of the Lambs, one of the only scary books I've ever read, I always read late at night. And so I had to pick up like People magazine or something afterwards so I could like turn my brain off before I fell asleep. For me, I've read 2 books recently by Rhode Island authors. One is actually a book for middle school. It's Are You Nobody Too by Tina Kane, who was the poet laureate of Rhode Island. And it's a story in sort of prose poems. But what's really wonderful about it, it's a girl, she's going into a new school. She's adopted from China. And so she was in sort of an exclusive private school, and she has to transition to a school that is mainly students who are born from Chinese parents. And so she sort of feels like a fish out of water because her home is, she lives with her white parents who adopted her. So she's having to adapt to this new culture, new environment. And she starts to read the poems of Emily Dickinson and really loves them, and then actually sees like an apparition of Emily Dickinson in front of her. But she's kind of a quiet kid. And what's interesting about this is it's set just after COVID. So it's one of the first books that I've read that's really contemporary, that sort of puts COVID and how people experience COVID, especially young people, into context. So it was quite interesting around identity and around reading and around fitting in, figuring out who you are. And what I liked about this is Tina Kane really incorporates a lot of the adults. So I thought it was interesting for me as an adult. I'm also an adoptive mom. So I really enjoyed it from multiple perspectives, and I highly recommend it. And the other one I read, which I know has been talked about on this podcast before, is The Wedding People by Alison Esbach. And she's actually a professor of creative writing at Providence College. And this book is set at a very fancy hotel in Newport, Rhode Island. And it's the meeting of 2 women. One is a bride. She's about to be married. She's got a whole week long of festivities planned. And the other is a woman whose marriage has just recently fallen apart. And she shows up in one outfit with very fancy dress, very fancy shoes. She's actually planning to end her life. And the 2 meet each other. She's not actually supposed to stay there because the bride had booked the entire hotel. So it was only supposed to be wedding guests. So there's this one woman who's like at this very low point, who's going to live it up for one more night. And she's sort of in the middle of all these wedding guests. And the bride and she form this very interesting relationship. And it sort of proceeds through the book as the 2 of them really get to know each other and sort of untangle the secrets that they're both holding in their past histories. So I thought it was fascinating. And it was one of the books recently that just really drew me in. And it was one that I couldn't wait to pick up every day. So I highly recommend that one. So now that we've covered books, is there anything that anyone's been watching that they find interesting?
I love this question. I love talking about movies. This is my time to shine. Any opportunity I get to talk about movies and be like pretentious about it, like that's for me. And I almost exclusively watch horror films or thrillers. And over the weekend, I watched a Netflix original. It's called It's What's Inside. So that was actually really good. And Oddity, which is an Irish horror film. And I enjoy both movies quite a bit, but I won't talk too much about it. But you can look at my Letterboxd profile if you want to see my very long-winded reviews online.
Awesome.
I think I want to follow Khamry. I'm kind of new to Netflix. I've been paying for it for too long, but finally started to watch it. And I know this is a little campy, but I loved Lost in Space as a child, and they have a Netflix Lost in Space, and it is so good. I don't know if anybody remembers Lost in Space, but there was Dr. Smith. He was kind of the evil character. Now it is portrayed by a woman who is kind of taking on his identity, and she's always trying to, she's causing trouble all the time. The Robinsons, the family, they take a blind eye to her, but finally they figure out who she is, and between her and the robot drama and going to different planets, it's just great. Khamry mentioned horror films. I like horror, but I don't think I could ever watch one. So Lost in Space is probably like the best for me.
All right. So I feel like I'm very late to this party, but did any of you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yes.
I just recently discovered it like a month ago, and I am burning through it because number one, I love that the episodes are 22 minutes long or 21 minutes long without the ads. It is so funny, which caught me by surprise. And every time it ends, I look at my husband, I say, I just love these characters. And he's like, really? How can you love them? Like they're, some of them are a little prickly or a little strange. And I just love that there's, it's in this police precinct in Brooklyn, but each of the main characters, each of the detectives has their own personality, their own quirks, but they truly love and support each other in their own way. And I just find it like fascinating. And now I just got into a series of 4 that are like all linked. So we just shot from one straight into the other last night. And I thought there were only 4 seasons because that's all there is on Netflix. But then I looked it up and there's 8 seasons. So I have to find the other 4 because I was about to have to slow down. But anyway, I know I'm late to this party because it was like started in 2013, but I had never heard of it. But I love it. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Great. You mentioned Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I've been watching a lot this weekend. We had over Thanksgiving and so on. But it reminded me of all things, Hot Frosty.
I also just watched that.
and the reason why that one always came to mind was because one of the actors in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I'm not sure of his name, but he's in Hot Frosty. He's like one of the cops.
Okay.
But it's funny. It's funny. I don't know. It's silly. There's romance, I guess. Yeah, there's romance. But yeah, it's just like Frosty, except Frosty is hot.
Which is ironic, a hot snowman, right? Yeah.
I have a lot to say about it, but I also can't say much because I also watch those movies often. And I always talk smack about it, but there I go again. I watch more of it. So,
Yep.
Well, I talked about watching K-dramas, and there's 2 K-dramas that I binged on over the Thanksgiving holiday. One was The Trunk, and that was really good. I won't mention it, so maybe people can watch what it's about, but it was very awesome. And the other one is a period piece called The Pearl Girl, which is about it's a Chinese flick, and it is about people that were enslaved to die for pearls. And so I finished them both, and then I went on to watch Madness. Did anybody watch Madness? That's new to Netflix.
No.
Madness, I thought, was so good. They're all kind of new, so I feel like in my family, it's like, don't say a word, don't tell me anything. And so those are the 3 that I've been watching, and I don't want to let anybody know what they're about, but I will give the title so you can kind of go and check it out and see if you like them too.
I'm adding them to the list.
Yes.
All right. Now that we have all of our recommendations, we're going to get to today's conversation about how the 9 community libraries of Providence are tailoring programming to meet the unique community interests and needs of their neighborhoods. So before we begin, I recently read an article this past weekend in American Libraries magazine that identified a shift from how we typically characterize libraries. So people often say, the library is the hub of the community or the center of the community. And what this article said is the community is the center of the library. So that is a shift. And it sort of got me really thinking, how are we doing this? How are we making the community the center of the library rather than thinking of the library exclusively as the center of the community? And I'm just wondering, before we really get started and dive in, how this resonates with all of you, or if you have any thoughts about that.
I think we kind of do it in ways because we figure out where we are, who we're serving, and we let that shape our programming, our book selection. I think each of us are doing that all the time. And I think we can do it better because there's still people in our communities that don't even know that we exist. Like I have to tell people all the time, we're right behind the Walgreens. Oh, there's a library there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a library there.
Yeah, I could agree with that, Cheryl. I think that that we rely heavily upon the community to kind of generate what we do at the library. Like we're generating concerts. We might talk about that a little bit later by what they want to hear. We're trying to grab books that we know that they would like. Like I know that there's a lot of during the summertime, I recognize that there were a lot of community development people coming around. And so, I asked the librarians to, buy some of the latest books pertaining to that subject, because I know that the books were going to be taken out. As a matter of fact, there's a book called Connected Communities, which I found, and I said, how much money do we have? Can we kind of like grab that book? I really think that people would like it. I know that I'll take it out. And I took it out and I loved the book. And when I went back to take it out again, which I often do, I couldn't because there was a hold on the book. And I was very excited about that because, again, we're kind of like looking at the community. We have our ears to the ground and we're really trying to kind of feed off the information and the vibe that they're giving us. So, yeah, I can understand that. I always call us the hub of the community, but it is, we're kind of like inside out.
Yeah, it does make it a little bit inside out, which is true. And I think we do try and do that. And it can be tricky. You have to have your sort of ear to the ground all the time.
Yes.
I do think the library should actively reflect, respond to, and grow with the community that we serve, rather than expecting the community to adapt with us and what we offer. The first thing that popped up into my head when I heard that question was how, there was a huge jump in small businesses opening from March 2020 to March 2022, which is fascinating because that was during the pandemic. But seeing this need prior to 2022, we didn't officially offer small business support services. So, given that this was a need in the community that arose, we not that it was our obligation, but to call ourselves a community library, it would just make sense to address that and make sure that we are offering programs and services that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So if we're going to dive in a little bit deeper, I would like to highlight the special programs and initiatives that all of you have brought to the community libraries that have particularly resonated with the neighbors in your neighborhood, in your community where your library is. So let's start with you, Michelle.
Sure.
You've been the supervisor over at Knight Memorial Library for about 15 months. And before that, you were a clerk on the circulation desk at the library.
Yes.
So in addition to managing the library, you and your family live in the neighborhood, which really gives you a first-person understanding of who lives there. These are your friends and your neighbors. So something our listeners might be surprised to learn is that you are a licensed social worker with years of experience in the social work field.
Yeah.
Not a librarian, but a lifelong user and lover of libraries.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering if you can share how you think your training as a social worker has assisted you in leading the library team and also in informing the programs and services that Knight Memorial offers to your library patrons.
Well, that's big. That's a big one, Cheryl. It is true. I am a master's level social worker, LICSW. I've been in social work / human services for, I believe, all of my working life. So I think it's fitting that I'm sitting here, particularly with the fact that we have brilliant expert librarians that also serve the community here at Knight Memorial. And so I can concentrate on what makes the staff happy, how can I support them, and how can I make the library inviting to the neighborhood that we work in, and that's more than just books and program. It's a vibe. It's a feeling when they walk in the door. I love it when a youth comes in and says, "Hey, miss, can I go in your office and get some candy?" That's the highlight of the day.
Right.
And also in terms of the programs that we've created, this is Knight Memorial Centennial Year. We've been here for 100 years. And we started off our big bang for the 100-year centennial on May the 14th with a big concert. And we had Shawnee, Latina pop star, to kind of bedazzle the community with her music and entertainment. It was a beautiful thing, along with other groups and activities. And after that, we made a big gesture, which it was, let's just entertain and provide programming in the name of the centennial for the whole year.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a big task, and we're still at it. We'll be at it until May 2025. But there's two programs that I really wanted to talk about that we've been doing really well with. One is we coined the name Nightclub. And through the nightclub, we've been entertaining the community by providing them with their music delights. Anything from Becky Bass at the steel drum to Paul Williams with his blues, Tensegrity, which is kind of like upbeat DJ. We've also utilized that platform to partner with other organizations such as Sankofa. And we excited some organizations like the Rhode Island Foundation that gave us money to move on and do more and do more. And the other program is called ABC at Night. ABC at Night stands for Arts, Books, and Conversation. And once a month, we invite a community leader who has a relationship with Knight Memorial Library and books to come in, and we get to know them on a personal level. We make them comfortable, and we talk to them about who they are, where they came from, how they're related to this Knight Memorial Library in the community, and how did they become the leaders that they became. How is it that, you became this person that serves Rhode Island in the way that you do? And they absolutely love it. We play a little music, we eat a little food, and then we really get down to the nitty gritty, and they really share with us. It's an amazing thing to listen to be a part of, and to see. We have it right in the adult section, so people can walk in off of the street and sit down and literally listen to some of these leaders. We've had people like Angie Bannerman and Uncomo from the Rhode Island Foundation come in. Linda Kushner, an author that she wrote the book, The Fight That Saved the Libraries. We've had Senator Anna Casada come in, Representative Juan Pachado, Louis Chow, who is the founder of the Kung Fu Club and Lion Dance's phenomenal story. And we can go on and on. We had Wanda Blake and Linda Sessions come in, and those two women, that was a night to remember. They are the daughters of Edna Frazier, and Edna Frazier, we have a book collection, the Edna Frazier Book Collection, which is the largest African-American book collection in Rhode Island. We have made a very comfortable space and place for the community at large to just come in and, talk to these individuals like their neighbors, like their friends. And we have a segment of part of it is there a discussion on what books kind of influence them. And so, yeah, those are the two great programs on the adult side. There's also programs on the youth side too that the library loves. We have story times that have really connected the library to schools in the neighborhood as well as daycares. They connect these young people to reading and make them lifetime readers.
I love that.
Yes, indeed. And we also we feed the kids. Not only do we feed the kids because of the after school program, which I think is great, but we also have a program called Dino Bites, and kids get to learn how to cook. They get to, no oven included. They get to learn how to read a recipe, and then they get to learn how to share and serve each other. I think that me being a social worker in this library is fitting. We're in the heart of the West End side of Elmwood Avenue. It's a disenfranchised community. Our riches come from diversity and ethnicity, sharing and caring, and kind of that kind of a wealth. And that's who I've always been serving.
Absolutely. And I think, like you say, your social work skills are making the staff feel comfortable, because all library workers have challenges when people come in and they're having a hard day. That's every library, or they're struggling with something. It can be really hard. So having someone at the helm who can really, help craft and make everyone feel welcome and feel that calm, when they come in. And I wanted to add, what's so cool too about the outdoor concerts is there's outdoor neon lights on the front of Night Memorial Library now. So that creates a very visual welcome, and then the sound as well that represents the different cultures in the neighborhood, which has been really cool. And then I love when I visited ABC at night, you hear people say, "Oh my gosh, I grew up right next to you," or "Oh my gosh, I went to that school as well." So you're creating this real conversation, that people are witnessing that building of community. So thank you so much. So now for something a little different, Lee. Those working at Community Libraries of Providence have heard you called the Garden Brarian. You've really brought your passion for gardening and integrated into your work. So can you tell us how you figured out that gardening was a hot topic among your neighbors, and then about some of the programs that you've been able to offer?
Sure thing. Yeah. Kind of, it gets back to what you're saying about, that phrase that you used was the community as a center of the library. One program that illustrates that, but also, it relates to my gardening, because it's true. Yes, I am an avid gardener. Is an outreach program I go facilitate at Davis Park Community Garden. Well, one, it's outside the library. It's out in the larger community, right? So we literally meeting people where they are. And then two, it was community generated. A patron of ours, she was a leader of the community garden, invited the library to kind of do programming there, so it was multifaceted like that. We maintain a pollinator garden primarily at Davis Park Community Garden. So, every other week we do an outreach program there, and help the community gardeners maintain the pollinator garden, and also bring in, new volunteers from the larger community to help them out. Kind of maintaining it as well as helping with various projects in the community garden. We also partnered with Harvest Cycle, and we serve as a drop-off location for food scraps. So folks can bring in their food scraps, and it'll eventually get, Harvest Cycle will pick it up and compost it at their facilities. We also do garden programming, like at the library. We have a library garden that was maintained for many years by a friend of the library. We recently got a giant donation, thousands of crocuses. I think a few libraries got them. And we planted probably a few thousand crocuses in the small little, library garden that we have relative to the amount of crocuses we have. So hopefully we'll have this, it'll be blanketed in the late winter, early spring with purple crocuses.
Oh my goodness, it's going to be gorgeous in the spring.
That was a great volunteer outing. We had a lot of support, folks coming and helping out to plant those. And we also recently got a seed starting shelf with grow lights and so on, like an indoor sort of setup.
Wow.
It's a new resource. We're going to put it to use this, late winter, early spring for sure. Perhaps by offering the space on the shelf for people to, rent a spot maybe and to get to start their own seeds. I don't know. We'll see. We'll definitely put it to use one way or the other.
I need to take advantage of that because I don't have a green thumb, but I want to. So in my head, I'm great at that, but I should probably start somewhere because I need to start making my New Year's resolutions. I'll probably start there.
Yeah, it's great. And who knew? I mean, I never would have dreamed that, I know you had one virtual program with like 500 people watching on how to start seeds. And then you did a video during COVID of building like a raised bed that had thousands and thousands of views. You really tapped this nerve in the community for, a love of gardening.
Yeah, we kind of hosted a few, garden know-how Zoom meetings during COVID that, I think people really resonated with folks. Yeah.
Lee, do you remember that program you hosted? It was right before COVID and 70 people showed up.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
That was, and that's, I should mention, that was through URI. It's it was one of their free presentations that they offer. So yeah, we'll definitely host gardening programs, presentations every year. We'll invite them back.
I remember you said
in the spring or so.
You didn't expect so many people to show up.
Well, we're trying to build the programming at that point. And it was like, we're just before COVID, we
Just
had
before
70. We
COVID,
literally had 70 people
in the building.
or more, perhaps, for a seed starting program.
Right, that's what it was, seed starting.
It's amazing. And I would say from what you've done, little tendrils have gone out into the other libraries where there's now been planting days, and the compost with Harvest Cycle Partnership is now at 4 different libraries. So you're really growing something there at Mount Pleasant, if I may, which is awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So Khamry, now turning to a completely different topic. You are CLPVD's entrepreneurship specialist, and you're in residence at the Knight Memorial Library. So what made you excited to use your MBA at the library? And also tell us about your personal business. You mentioned that you have your own business.
Yes,
So
yes.
Can you tell us a little about that?
So one, like I said, I do not have a green thumb, but I am good at business administration. So that's that's what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
But in my studies, in my program, I was mostly excited for, I learned a lot about global economics, digital marketing, general management and leadership skills, all of that. And I was mostly excited to be able to use these new skills and use this knowledge to offer counsel to patrons. I feel like it also armed me with the tools and skills to expand our program offerings and really cover as many bases as possible in-house. So for example, I'm able to offer social media marketing classes here at the library. And that's offered in a series, so we could cover different subtopics every week, or even Canva for your business. So a lot of folks are entrepreneurs who are, have to be a one man. And part of that is designing a lot of things yourself and doing all the marketing yourself. You wear all the hats, So if there's any way that I could alleviate that stress from patrons and apply my knowledge to these programs to help them check a couple of boxes, that's part of the exciting parts of my role here at the library. And for my own business, so MBK Beauty, which is a beauty business, it specializes in makeup artistry and selling vegan cosmetics at retail, which also started during the pandemic. I know I mentioned a little bit of that earlier in the podcast, but that also started during the pandemic when makeup artistry services were not exactly a thing during the pandemic. We couldn't get within 6 feet of each other. So that wasn't happening at all. So I had to make a little bit of a pivot to more of the retail side of things and selling products. But before that, I had no business experience. And with that, I've kind of used my business as an example of both what to do and what not to do. I always see failure as being the biggest teacher. So I use a lot of my own missteps and my own mistakes to apply that to the programs here and the consultations here to kind of help entrepreneurs avoid the things that I did that I would go back and change, or some things that went well for me that I would also advise patrons to do. And it's really helped me grow as an entrepreneur, especially as a specialist here, because I feel like while I'm also teaching and guiding patrons, I'm learning at the same time. So it's kind of a cycle of learning and teaching. And the best way to learn is to teach. So that's kind of how I approach things. But my approach here at the library is more like, the things that I didn't get to have as an entrepreneur or things that I didn't know about, I get to bestow upon all the patrons and small business owners that come to visit me.
Yeah, that's great. And who is the primary audience? Who are you seeing? What types of businesses or who's coming in?
Yeah, so while we serve a bunch of different folks with different walks of life, our audience is primarily underserved populations and communities. This includes patrons whose first language isn't English, BIPOC patrons, low-income patrons, patrons who all express a passion and desire to be a small business owner and their own boss, but may not have as much access to resources or capital as their more privileged counterparts.
Yeah. And how do you feel what you're doing at the Knight Memorial Entrepreneurship Center is a little bit different than other organizations that support, small and micro businesses? And I know you have partnerships with many of them, but what makes your services unique, do you think?
I feel like the highlights would be one, no cost access to everything. We try our best to eliminate finances as a barrier. And then for, beyond business support, our libraries provide critical wraparound services like free internet access and other educational programs that empower entrepreneurs with foundational skills, often overlooked by traditional business services and agencies. And libraries, like Michelle mentioned, we mean to be a safe, non-intimidating environment for individuals who otherwise may not feel comfortable navigating the business sphere or attending corporate networking events. So for folks that might be a little too shy or intimidated by the concept of going to a large networking event at a co-working space, they could start here and kind of, with the baby steps, build their way towards that and gain that confidence and reassurance that they need.
Yeah. And what's great is that you've even hosted events where you've invited some of the other agencies and sort of provided that introduction in the warm and friendly space that is the library. You've been able to make those connections. So I have to say, I was at the Pepito Opportunity Connection meeting last week, and a young woman came up to me and said she held up a check that she had. And she said she had won the pitch contest that you sponsored. Tell me about that, because I was like, what?
I was very excited. So our first place winner, her name is Astarian Luxury. We actually met at a community event, which is a lot of how I built my audience here. But we met at a community event, and we were both on the section of the room for folks in the beauty industry, because that's her business. She sells products at retail, cosmetics products, and she also offers services similar to me. And we've just kind of kept in contact. And when I knew I wanted to start a business pitch competition here at the library, I've entered a bunch myself, and I wanted to replicate that same experience here at the library for folks who, again, might be more intimidated by the other business pitch competitions in the state. I like to say that what we offer is like Shark Tank without the sharks.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to make sure I was there every step of the way to offer the chance to pitch without being absolutely terrified or feeling like an island. Because again, as an entrepreneur, you're already doing everything by yourself. It can get lonely. So it's nice to have someone in your corner to help you obtain this capital. So we held our first business pitch competition in October. I was very excited. We invited folks from the Center for Women in Enterprise. We also invited the founder of the Diversity Business Exhibit. It was really nice. The community members who weren't even part of the competition or didn't know the participants came out to support, which was really nice. It was amazing to see how many people showed up and showed out, and participants who wouldn't have otherwise signed up for a business pitch competition put themselves out there and talk about their business so passionately was so inspiring. And even for someone who hates public speaking, myself included, it was nice to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah, well, I could just see the joy on her face and the success. So it's a ripple effect out there.
Exactly.
And she was telling the entire table about how she had won this.
I love that. Yeah, and unlike other competitions, it's not like you win and then that's it. Go do what you have to do. I like to say that I help patrons and entrepreneurs from the very start and onwards, and there's no ends. Like, we can keep going, keep going. So even now, like, I will meet with those patrons if they have any questions, or if I don't know the answer, I will find the answer and then I'll get back to them.
And Kim, can you toot your own horn a little bit and talk about your pitch competition and how you paid it forward?
Yeah, sure. So I am part of an initiative called the Libraries as Launchpads. And recently I finished a program with them to train library workers to be entrepreneur specialists. And they had a pitch competition for the chance to win some funds for a dream project at your location. And I pitched the idea of something called Tech to Trade. So it's basically a program for Spanish-speaking entrepreneurs to sign up for, and it's a 10-week program. And if they finish this program into completion, they get to keep the tech that they've been training on for the 10 weeks with a digital literacy professional. And they get to walk away with their own laptop and their own accessories to go along with that, all to eliminate the barrier of technology and finance.
Yeah, that's literally changing lives. Thank you. Thank you, Khamry. Appreciate that. And now our last speaker is Dhana. So of all of the guests we've talked to today, you've been at the community libraries the longest. You've grown up in Providence, so you have a unique perspective, of course, on our libraries and what they offer. So I'm wondering, you mentioned that you have a particular and personal interest and passion for photography and also for music. So how have you been able to integrate that and your energy for that into your job in a way that really resonates?
Well, first of all, I really want to thank Lee, because I've said this to him before, and I'll say it until I'm gone. Lee makes dreams come true. You can tell him what you like, and he'll say, well, we can do that. Chris Craig, a journalist from the Providence Bulletin, I think it was pre-COVID, did a photography series on Black women in business. And we hosted it here. We signed up for it, and it was quite a hit. I mean, people was like in front of our circulation, kind of in the middle of the library, and it became quite a hit. So I remember saying to Lee, "Oh, I wish I could do something like that." And he said, "You can."
All right.
So next thing I know, he's ordering easels. So I went into my, hostess, outreach mode, and I started reaching out to people that I knew and just some people we didn't know from the community. So it became a mixture of amateurs and professionals. We're not snobby here. Anybody who has a talent and they want to show it, we host it up. So that started that. And I also do a little professional photography myself. I call myself a cell phone photographer at this point, probably the last 7 years. And I think I do a good job. A couple of things have been published. People seem to like it. So that, we did that. And from that, we do an artist talk. So after the artists exhibit, probably in about 3 months, we do a talk. I feel like I'm the Oprah of the artist talk.
You are, yes.
And we sit at a table and I ask them questions about inspiration. How much does it take to fund your hobby? What's your favorite thing? And it usually goes really well. I found that many artists are very humble. I had one person who is so amazing. She didn't want anybody to come to the exhibit. Her mom did come because she was really shy. So sometimes we have a lot of people, sometimes we don't, but we always have a good time. As far as the music is concerned, I used to be involved with, I'm going to call it a legendary club, was the Roots Cafe that was downtown, and it was run by Len Cabral, his brother Allie, and some friends. And it was an amazing place. Every Tuesday was strictly jazz, and Sunday was jazz blues jam. You got to see the most amazing talent there. So I was like, maybe we should, bring a little music to the library. So here we are, 10 years into the future. We've had people here from Joe Potenza and Evening Sky with Tish Adams, Leland Brown. We've had Paul Alexander Williams, the late Mibit Threats, who was an amazing bass player. His was the 9th concert, I believe, right? Lee was the 9th concert we had.
That sounds right.
Yeah. I think that might have been our biggest group. His family came out. It was a beautiful tribute. So I just asked myself, we can't go wrong here. Who doesn't love art and music?
Right.
Even if you don't like both, you like one. So it's a win-win situation. And I'm glad Mount Pleasant has put music on the map, and now other places like Michelle is doing music, and she's done some really cool stuff, not only inside, but outside. So yeah, that's how my passion has kind of morphed into programming at Mount Pleasant. And I think we, and I don't say just myself, but we do a really good job from the staff who, before we weren't open all the nights, we'd have people volunteer on that Wednesday night we weren't open and, set up our snack table, do decoration. So it's a branch initiative.
Yeah, you make it so special with refreshments and decorations, and it just looks like you've just come into this really special place.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
where clearly you honor and are respectful and are it's a passion.
Right.
So yeah, I just think the libraries, as you said, Donna, they've really embraced arts, culture, business, and even Khamry, the Makers Fest,
Yes.
Makers Markets that have been hosted at
Yes.
all of your libraries
Right.
highlight local artists and entrepreneurs and the products that they're creating and make them available for sale. And we really do try and celebrate our local arts community in all of its forms and to make it available to everyone in the community to come in. And it's had an amazing response. So it's been really exciting. And you were really a pathway, a wayfinder, in doing that and starting the jazz concert and creating a space for that community who so love the roots, to continue to come together and be
Yeah.
in community.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you all so much. So we always wrap up the show with a segment called The Last Chapter, where we talk about a library or a bookish related question. So today, as we are entering a multi-holiday season, I wanted to ask, what books do you give the most? And it could be for any occasion or just like, hey, I read this, I really want you to read it. Which book have you kind of passed on or given the most?
Lately, I've been going to a lot of baby showers and kids' birthday parties. So I'll start with those. It's a tie between Pinkalicious. I also have a niece now, so she'll be getting her first Pinkalicious book. Her first book that's not a board book to chew on. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. And also, there was this book that I loved so much when I was younger that I read multiple times. It's called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate DiCamillo. I was so obsessed with it. I made it my whole personality.
Oh, yeah. My daughter dressed up as Edward Tulane when she had to be a book
Stop
character
it.
in first grade. Yes, because we
Stop
read that
it.
together out loud and we both loved it so much.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say for children, I always give The Very Hungry Caterpillar, which is a classic book, but it has everything in it. It was the very first book we read to our daughter. So it just has a really special place in my heart. Yep.
My grandkids always get the Dr. Seuss, all the places we will go, or you will go. And as for adults, I always kind of lean towards spirituality. Just kind of like unique books that talk about chakras and meridians and all that good stuff. The I Ching, even tarot. I've got a daughter who's fascinated by tarot, so that's exactly what she gets at Christmas time. Lots of that. So yeah, everybody kind of gets that meditative spirituality book from me. They know me for it. And then the kids, I kind of like, Dr. Seuss is always a winner.
Donna or Lee?
I'm going to give A Beginner's Guide to Rug Tufting by Kristen Przorsky. I'm guilty. It's a plug for one of our programs. But no, and after you read the book, then you can come in and you actually don't even have to read the book, but it is a great book though. It is a great book for if you want to learn more. But you can come in and learn how to tuft with us without any prior knowledge. We'll set you right up. You can learn how to design and make a rug.
And that is a super cool program that I am going to sign up for sometime.
Sounds great. That sounds fun.
I'm going to add gardening and rug tufting to the skills I want in 2025.
There you go.
I have a book. It's called The Best of Both Worlds. And Matt Brown is an internet sensation. So this is a cookbook. I mean, we're in the holiday season. It's probably going to start getting cold. So people are going to want to cook in their kitchen. And there's such things as shrimp and grits, crock pot, goulash, sweet potato pie, just everything. This Matt is also, like I said, he started out on Instagram and now he has books, he has pots and pans, he has seasonings, and he's joined by a man named Aaron Brown, who is a grill master. So together they are making good stuff happen, and there's a lot of pictures. Most people I've learned in being a librarian, people like cookbooks, but they want pictures in them.
Yeah.
There are plenty of pictures in here, and they make it look so easy. even a person like myself who's not a good cook, I'm going to tackle a few. So,
All right.
like I said, best of both worlds. People should check it out.
I'll write that down.
Sounds like good for the cozy season that we're getting into.
Yes.
So if you want to learn more about CLPVD and our programs, you can visit our website at clpvd.org or visit any one of our 9 libraries. We're located all around the city of Providence. And now I want to thank you all for joining me, and I want to thank everyone for listening. If you'd like to tell us what books you give the most, or just reach out to the show, send us an email at overdoingitpod@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at overdoingitpod. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to help us reach more Rhode Islanders. Overdoing It is proud to be a resident partner of the Rhode Island Center for the Book and is brought to you by library staff and community members all around the Ocean State. The project has been funded in part by the Rhode Island Office of Library and Information Services. Thank you again for listening, and this has been another episode of Overdoing It, the Rhode Island Library Podcast. We're overdoing it, but you're doing just fine.